what's up? What's going on? Glad to be with you on this Thursday. It is the wrestling match. How are you today? Good to be with you. It is a great, great day to be a wrestling fan. I'm happy to be with you. I'm happy that wrestling got stronger, that pro wrestling got exactly what it should need, what it should want, with so much good news yesterday. And I'm happy to talk about it with you today, right here at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Would love it if you could subscribe for free. Subscribe for free to the YouTube channel. Subscribe for free to our podcasts. Thank you for listening in podcast form. Come on over to thewrestlingmatchshow.com if you haven't done so yet. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have you as a Matt member. Matt members this week have gotten not one, but two parts of my reaction to the Mr. McMahon Netflix doc. We watched the NXT on CW debut right here at the Wrestling Mat on Tuesday night. We got a lot more planned for this month. And we'll have a lot more wrestling that we are guaranteed to talk about for many years to come. The AEW TV deal, long rumored, red zone, 1 yard line, and as of yesterday, a touchdown. It got announced. It is happening. The new television deal begins in January of 2025 for 3 years with an option for a fourth. The money is honestly has nothing to do with any of us because I know that's the next thing that's going to get talked about. But it seems to be quite lucrative for AEW. There's various reports and escalators, and they don't have to put those numbers out there. Maybe we'll actually get the big final numbers, but there's been rumors of, well, it works into the pay-per-view deal, and it's 120, no, it's 155, no, it's more than that. From everything I have been told, and a lot of this I've heard through the grapevine over the last couple of months, like everybody else had, it puts AEW in an outstanding spot. Let's get this very straight here. Whether it be the wrestlers who are already making a lot of money, or more importantly to me, the jobs that just secured for people who weren't bringing in wrestler money, and even wrestlers who weren't bringing in major money, because there's different tiers there and how that all works. It provided a lot of job security for a lot of people, as AEW has been able to do for people in the wrestling industry for the last 5 years. You know what that means? That means that people are going to make money comfortably from a second wrestling company for the next 3 to 4 years without concerns. That means that us as wrestling fans have a viable additional company that we can continue to get excited about as they come towards a second deal and will be, on their way to 10 years in the business. I can't tell you how difficult that is to do. Ask Jeff Jarrett. Ask anybody who worked in TNA how difficult it is to get on the map and stay on the map and get that money. AEW has been able to now do that. AEW is going to be streaming their programming of Collision and Dynamite starting in January 2025 in a simulcast on Max. There appears to be some kind of deal as it relates to the pay-per-view. And discounted or whatever that's going to be. There are indications from WBD execs that the back catalog will end up on Max. I think that And I've talked about that on this show probably more than even you guys want to hear about it. That is massive to me. We are heading in the direction, if you haven't picked up on this by now, of these bundled streamers. It's going to happen. You have to give people a reason to drop their money. You have to load up these streaming services with reasons for people to drop their money. And you have to continue to add content because everybody else is doing that. I have often said, and other people in and out of wrestling will tell you, WWE was way ahead of the game with the WWE Network, and then got ahead of the game again when they sold all that content to Peacock. And where are we at now? Well, now Max, which has all the HBO and Cinemax stuff and all that stuff, now they're adding AEW Wrestling. They are adding a fan base, much like WWE Network did, that is willing to go, yes, I am hyper fixated on wrestling. It is what I care about. It is what I love. It is what I am a fan of. I am going to drop my money to pay for Max, to pay for the pay-per-views, maybe at a cheaper price, to go be able to watch old content. I don't know if I took it for granted. I don't know if I was surprised. I don't know if I was naive. Every month at WWE, basically from the middle of 2020 on, at least once a month, I would go into the Bump Studio on a Monday late afternoon, and our wonderful production team, and at that point, whoever was doing that was about 2 people, would set me up to shoot best of, insert wrestler, pay-per-view name, whatever here. It did not take me very long to do. I would be on camera for maybe the beginning, the middle, and the end. I think I would read a few paragraphs for 2 to 3 on-cams for one that ended up being 2 to 3 to 4 hour best of presentations. And I often wondered, who's watching this stuff? Only to come to find out that that's how a lot of people saw me. Yeah, I was on Raw Talk and SmackDown Lowdown, and I was on the Bump. That stuff ran all the time. And you name it, I covered it. Best of Mania, Best of Rumble, Best of Money in the Bank 1, Best of Money in the Bank 2, Best of Yokozuna, Best of Bobby Lashley, Best of Starrcade, Best of Halloween Havoc, Best of you name it, I did it. Some more fun than others, some more intricate than others. The NWO one's one of the best ones that we ever did. We did a Best of SummerSlam one at a crappy beach in Stamford. We did Money in the Bank where I climbed a ladder. We did the APA one where I set up the card table and I was flipping red coin. I had the backwards hat on and playing. And I didn't think much of it. And now the amount of people that have said, like, hey, you're still on there here and there. Like, I see you. That old content, whether it's good to have on in the background. I can't tell me how many people said to me, yeah, I kind of just put it on as I go to bed, or I have it on as I'm doing work in the background, and, I hear your voice or what. I know people take it in that way, and I think there is a massive opportunity to create new fans, to fill in, I don't even like to say educate, but to entertain people who maybe have only picked up on AEW in the last 5 years. Maybe they weren't there for the full 5 years. Maybe they weren't. They were there and they left and they came back. Maybe this will bring people back. Between Dynamite last night and what was shared on social media by just fans and people posting their favorite stuff, yeah, it was nice to take a trip down memory lane in the last day about people talking about the 5-year history of Dynamite and AEW. And as I saw all that stuff, I was reminded of some things I forgot. I was happily reminded of things that I've always loved. I have seen the Hangman Dark Order entrance a bunch of times in the last week. It's one of the best things the company ever did. And hopefully, and I don't know how long this takes, and I will tell you because I was in WWE when things were migrating over to Peacock. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get that done. So I don't know how long that kind of stuff will take, what the delivery date of that kind of stuff will be. We got to get all these episodes. Is it ready to go? Have they been working on this anyway since the deal has been agreed to? I would just say to everybody, because I'm as excited about everybody else is about the back catalog of pay-per-views and TV shows and everything like that. It does take time. WWE dealt with that with Peacock. They dealt with that with the network. They're going to go through ups and downs there, but they'll get it right. I mean, if you think about it, they had to load all that stuff onto Max, all those old HBO movies or Sopranos or Curb Your Enthusiasm, whatever it is. That will take time. There is work that needs to be done. You'll have to classify that in a certain way. When I worked at WWE, right as Peacock got announced, I had actually thought that the WWE network had gotten to exactly where it needed to be. And that took time. I mean, now we're talking years and years. It took time to get all that stuff where it needed to be, to where I thought it could be disjointed and tough to find stuff. And I think they had figured it out, and the people that worked behind the scenes to get that to where it needed to be did such a great job. I think I had told, I don't know if I've told this story. I think I have. But I had a podcast idea right before the pandemic. In the works. Similar to how JR's podcast is or used to be, or Bruce's podcast, of just pick a topic. The idea of, going back in history and talking about it with someone who was there. My idea was to basically do this with a wrestler. So, I shot a pilot of a podcast that I also think would have had video elements to it, called How We Got There. And what I would do was not interview like I did with Kofi about his entire career, but I basically just took a chunk of time. I took his debut and those vignettes that ran on, the WWE's version of ECW, and we took it all the way through, I believe, if I remember correctly, the feud with Randy Orton. And the stuff he did with MSG and all that. The big first real big push for Kofi Kingston. And we did about an hour and 45 minutes. And to get ready for that show, I did all of the research for that show. All of it. I watched everything Kofi did for a multi-year span. The vignettes, the matches, the feuds, the stories, and I would pick out things that we could grasp onto. And it took him down memory lane in a way that he hadn't been taken down memory lane. We were able to, and this was a big part of the show to me, is because when you hear these podcasts and they tell the stories, they really can't use the footage. They're not supposed to. I know what's happened. And you could have accompaniment and Bruce could talk about stuff, or JR could talk about stuff, or anybody that does these, encapsulated time period podcasts. My whole thing was, hey, we have the library. We can use it. So not only can we show clips of what we're talking about, even if they're shown in post, after I finish recording the conversation, it's also going to help jog memory, because my idea behind this, and the pilot I shot with Kofi was unfortunately done remotely because of the pandemic and all that stuff, but we did it on a Zoom, so he was able to see footage that we were talking about. And we had stuff picked out, and I worked with my great team on the podcast side to help put that together. And one of the first things that we showed Kofi was a dark match he did with Steve Corino. And I knew it existed. And I went, I don't think this has been brought up. Why would it be? And so one of the first things we show, it is a hard camera shot. They've been putting these on WWE Vault lately of a dark match from SmackDown. You see the time code, and it's him and Steve Corino. And he was so happy and taken aback to see it. And I knew he had something right there. Kofi's also the best. I can't tell you. Like, Kofi did the bump pilot before I even worked there. So I credit Kofi for this, and I talked to him a lot about after, because we talked about him tagging with CM Punk and winning the tag team titles. We talked about him tagging with Mickie James and the IC title thing that they did. We talked about the stuff with Randy, and, you know, I think a lot of people know about the stupid, like, we got into that. Talked about how Big Show may be the reason why his chest looks like that, but it was taking Kofi down a path that more in depth. And it was always something that I said I wanted to talk to current superstars and current wrestlers. I can't believe I said superstars, sorry. Current wrestlers about what they had done. I didn't want it to be too recent. I didn't want them to have to blur the lines of kayfabe. So this was, God, the idea was it can't be anything within 5 years. And I did that with Kofi, and it went well. His internet sucked. I think that hurt us, and pandemic and stuff like that. But I wanted to go do these. And I had 10 or 15 shows written. I had one with Sheamus about his run starting in ECW into what he did with debuting against Cena or winning the title from Cena and wrestling Randy. Like, I had a good chunk. And I would just grab these chunks, A, because I didn't want it to be too long, and B, I wanted to be able to do other episodes. I had an episode written out for Rey Mysterio that had nothing to do with WWE. That was basically his ECW run and the majority of his babyface run in WCW. I had a Miz episode. I had a Shawn Michaels episode that I wanted to start at Royal Rumble 1995 and conclude at WrestleMania 12. So a year and a half. I had a Kevin Nash episode written. That was about a year and a half long. 2 years long. I had a Paul Heyman episode written. I had a bunch of these. I know that concept can work. I think it's something that AEW could look into. I think they should absolutely lean into their back catalog and create programming to get people to watch that, to get people to engage with their product outside of Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. They now have that capability to create new, and it came out in the press release that there's, concepts and ideas and things that Turner will want and new shows. And that's a very logical step to take. But now they have that. Now, they have to have the bandwidth to do that. Do they shoot stuff at their Nashville studio? Do they shoot it at TV? That is tough. That WWE has somewhere to go do this stuff. And they have far more people. And this is just the nature of really the size of the business. But WWE can go do that stuff at TV and can coordinate that stuff a little bit easier. AEW is not as big. So now it's about, okay, and I don't know if they're going to do this. I hope they will for the fans' sake. They can now look and say, okay, we have 5 years worth of TV. And I've seen some of you mention that you can, watch some of this on Trill and all that. That's different. This is a domestic United States deal to put that stuff on there. So internationally, it will change. And I think those numbers will come as well. That's a big thing that I don't think it's talked about as much as the international television deals. And I know we have people like Nerdy Dude from Germany and other people internationally that are caring about this stuff. I think that stuff will come as well. But I think AEW would be wise to now leverage what they have in their library and create new content. Best of Hangman, best of Orange Cassidy. Here's the history of the AEW World Championship. Here's the best tag team matches in AEW history. Here's the best of Double or Nothing. Here's the best of All In. Here's the best of All Out. Whatever it may be. AEW, we're the best wrestle. That's a show. There's documentaries to do. Now that, like I said, they need the manpower. They need the bandwidth to do this kind of stuff. And with a new television contract and new money coming in, you can now spend on that more. I've seen it. You can go to AEW's website. They have job listings. They have people that they've added to the team, editorial-wise and stuff like that. Nerdado says, but they already have that on YouTube. Yes, they do. There's a difference, though, between putting out a timeline of just matches, and putting a little bit more production value into it, getting voiceover work done, having a host on it. I think there's probably a podcast idea out there for them to basically watch every episode of Dynamite and start from the beginning. Almost like a guide. Put a host with pick a talent that has been there for all, if not most of the run. And go back and watch every episode of Dynamite. Something you can easily plug in your television shows to go, hey, the Dynamite Watch Back podcast. Watch it with blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And it comes out every Thursday. And it sends people where? Right to Max. One episode. Episode 1. Here we go. You give people a reason to listen to a new podcast, to look at your old content, to go to Max. Like, you go back to watch. You go back to find it. And I know they've put up, Danielson and McGee. All that stuff is good. You need to hit every arm you can. WWE has a stream going, it feels like, every day now. Best of cage matches, best of this, best of whatever it is. And they also have that on Peacock. And they have that on the network internationally. Any of that. You need, WWE Vault has to, there's stuff that's not going to land on Max that can land on the YouTube page. You need to hit all of those arms. I get that some of that stuff exists already. But now there's a chance to do more. Some of you guys are throwing off some options of who could be involved in that, and you could also have guests involved. You could have the same 2 people host every week, but then, hey, this is a big Dynamite episode because it's a Jericho main event. It's an MJF main event. It's the formation of the Pinnacle. It's the formation, as we saw on the first Dynamite, of the Inner Circle. Whatever, the Elite breakup. We're going to have Kenny on to discuss the, Iron Man match with Pac. Countless ways you can go about this. But it's all about now being able to put that out into the world. And this TV deal will allow for more of that. And with more money out there, there's more money to spend and to grow the company in different ways. All of this, every single bit of it, is a win for wrestling fans. It's all right there. Someone just said you could watch CM Punk's best match of the last 4 years. Yeah, he was over there. TNA, I think they still do this. Tell me if I'm wrong. If anybody is in the news in another company, they're very quick to get a piece of that and go, hey, here's the best of Jeff Jarrett right here. Here's, we just happened to put up this match of Generation Me as the Young Bucks are doing something big on AEW. Samoa Joe's the world champ. Oh, you know what? We have this great triple threat match you may have seen before. If you haven't, though, but it's got him and AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels. Yeah, I guess he's in the news right now. By the way, you can find this on TNA. They did it with Cody. Franklin just said it. All of that stuff works. And AEW can and has. And let me give them plenty of credit. I loved what they did yesterday. Went up on their social that they gave you like a little stat graphic pack of all the stuff about Ospreay and Ricochet. acknowledging that this feud obviously goes beyond AEW, and the first match happened at Rev Pro, and that's great. And that's hitting it from every arm. Here's our Instagram page saying this. Here's our YouTube page saying this. Max can have this. You got to hit people as much as possible. You got to whack them over the head with this stuff. And WWE does and continues to do a great job with that. If you're not on Peacock, you go on their YouTube, there's something there. They upload a full match. They upload best of matches. There's single match streams. There's 4-hour streams. You name it. And now AEW, I don't know what the deal is. Here's what I would say. I don't know what the deal is in terms of what they're allowed to show on YouTube and how that works with Warner and who owns it and all that. Obviously, they have shown old stuff. And I don't know how the new deal in terms of exclusivity to the past episodes or clips works. I would think it's all wide open. But there's a lot they could do. And then the other thing I would think about, we know they have a relationship with New Japan. We know they have a relationship with Stardom. We know they have a relationship with CMLL. Does some of that footage find its way onto Max? Think about how WWE owned WCW footage, owned ECW footage, bought libraries of the territories. What are they doing now? Saturday nights, they're doing Saturday night. They showed the Omni show. They probably owe Tom Green a little thank you for all that, for the idea, because it's working. And I'm happy that he's kicking ass with his thing. But what's to say you can't do a best of Will Ospreay and include him and Ricochet in New Japan? And include, as people have explained what Rev Pro is in the comments, Rev Pro stuff. Why can't you cut those deals? They're obviously allowed to use New Japan footage when, they're hyping certain things up. Tony Storm has cut 2 wild promos in the last couple of days for Stardom and for CMLL. There are partnerships there. When the Ring of Honor deal happened, and Tony bought Ring of Honor, I was actually at NXT that night. And I remember hearing the story. I think it was Tuesday, it came out, and then it was announced Wednesday, whatever it was. And I remember going, man, I wish, selfishly, I had now access to that footage because of the stories we could tell when I was interviewing people or new best of stuff. Like, cool, we got, I was there when Samoa Joe was for a time. If the ROH, library, and I know Joe was already in AEW at this point, but just as an example, if the ROH library had been acquired by WWE, now we can go, hey, best of Samoa Joe, we got some Ring of Honor stuff here. Seth Rollins, here's Tyler Black from Ring of Honor, that kind of stuff. So, I thought, and I still think, maybe down the line, WWE should or can acquire or license some TNA footage, which they've used a little bit here and there. Obviously, more so on recently because of the partnership, but being able to leverage that kind of partnership and, you have a big chunk of AJ Styles' career? Let's show him that. Let's make a show out of that. So these are now down the road thoughts that you could think about for AEW. Licensing, coming to a deal where they could be putting together maybe a better, fuller picture of their wrestlers. Of a Will Ospreay, of an Okada, of a Jay White, of a Juice Robinson. God, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Hangman, Ibushi, where you can connect where their careers are at, but then can connect them to AEW now. And I know, like, Stardom as a service and New Japan as a service, but it's not putting full New Japan things on. It's not. It's licensing it. It's finding a way to say, hey, we can use some of this stuff. New Japan is only going to prosper if their current stuff and their old stuff is available in some way, shape, or form on an AEW product. Stardom, they should all embrace that. I don't know if those conversations will happen. Obviously, there's a lot of licensing and copyright and what's allowed to be used. But I think now that's the next steps. So when I said, we throw that out there, they have the deal. What does it mean? Well, now it's about growing the company and maybe filling in some of the gaps. 5.5-ish years is still a startup. People are still watching, stopped watching, came back, whatever. Were turned off by WWE, came over to AEW, went back to, or watch everything. Now you can fill in some of the gaps, fill in some of the stories, tell people more about the wrestlers that maybe they don't know a lot about, and just create more content, because that's the world we live in, and get it out there in as many ways as possible. So I'm very happy for wrestling fans. I'm happy for my friends in AEW. I am happy for people who maybe are breathing a little easier today about, their jobs and things like that. Not that it was ever in doubt, but I would think that the atmosphere yesterday at TV was probably one of the best it's ever been. Hey, what we're doing is working, and we got paid accordingly for it. And now we have the opportunity to do that much more. Great. I'm happy about it. Everybody should be happy about it. Sorry to the podcasters and creators who now have to eat crow, and they'll find a way to say, well, they didn't get a 10-year deal. They didn't get a 5-year deal. And why wasn't it $200 million? Whatever. They now have to pivot to other garbage, other talking points. They'll find their way. But that one hurt them, I'm sure. That one hurt them. Oh, no, we can't talk about there being no deal or the tease of a deal. They're never going to deal. They're going to be off. Oh, no, they got a deal. Cool. That means you still have them to talk about. The best thing to happen to people who shit on AEW for content is that they got a new deal, because that means they're sticking around. And if they want to find those annoying talking points, they got 4 more years to do that. Because if it went away, then what? You don't get clicks from shitting on it in WWE like you did 5 years ago. And believe me, this goes in waves. What's the cool thing? Cool. What's the thing that people are kind of down on or want to shit? Boom, go get them. Put up the faces. And we do that too. I get that. I also just know this is a much more positive show than a lot of other ones out there who are looking for that. What's going to click? Even if I didn't watch the show last night, I could shit on it. You can figure out who those shows are. And by the way, that business model works. So I can say all that stuff, and I know those people are making money going in that direction. I just don't feel good talking about it that way. In other good news from yesterday, NXT did a big number on CW. A big number on CW. I mean, 850,000 people. I expected a solid number. I expected the number to be comparable to USA and potentially higher, because CW is available in more places. It's an over-the-air network. It's, for me here in the New York market, it's WPIX. It's been around forever. It became a CW-branded channel. It's available in a lot of places. They loaded up the show. They promoted the hell out of the show. It's CM Punk. It's Bianca and Jade. It's The Miz. But they did better than I expected. And they did a big, demo. And they did so, as I mentioned, because I wondered about this, against the baseball playoffs and against the vice presidential debate, which did a huge number. And they did great. And they touted it accordingly. And that news coming out so close to the AEW TV deal was like, no one can complain about anything. There's nothing here. NXT developmental just started a new TV deal where they got more money than they were getting from USA Network to broadcast developmental, not the finished product. To put that on TV, to put that in an arena of 7,000 or 8,000 people, to get paid for developmental, and then get 850,000 people to watch, to do the biggest number CW's ever done. Another win for wrestling fans. Franklin just said they did an amazing job making NXT feel like a Raw or SmackDown in terms of importance and feel. The in-ring work may have been developmental still, but the broadcast was lights out. It's a strong production. WWE is going to do that. I would guess, obviously with Triple H there, a few more people were in attendance than normal. Maybe from behind the scenes, whatever it may be. That makes sense. Next week, they're running a building of what looks to be, I think I saw that last WrestleTix update, 1,200, 1,300. Now, as I said yesterday, and I've said, you can make any building look and sound like you need it to for TV. Obviously, a bigger arena and more people make that job easier. But you can do that. But I agree with Franklin. That show felt so much bigger than it normally does. The depth of people. I always liked how they lit the NXT show in terms of the ring. I think it puts way more of a spotlight on the ring. Whereas, like I said, that Performance Center, the people are so close to it, and because they go straight up and they don't go as far back, they're too on top of the action, and it doesn't give you enough depth to focus on the wrestlers more than you'd like to. Like when I was at Arthur Ashe last week, and I looked, and I was like, oh, this is an interesting building for wrestling because it goes up, it goes back, but it kind of goes up, but there are these like boxes of seats as opposed to, lined up across 15, 18, 24 seats in a row. It still looked cool, even though it kind of goes up more. It's a very like up and out and straight up arena, whereas like arenas go like wide and they come out wide and they shoot back up this way. If you're looking at TV, the camera goes up and the seats go up and back. So the production and the value of what AEW was able to do last week and what NXT was able to do this week in an arena, it makes the show better. But they did a great rating, and that's fantastic. I hope that continues on. Let's talk a little bit about Dynamite here. They opened the show with Ricochet and Will Ospreay. I'm not surprised they opened it that way because you had Bryan and Okada very likely going to be the main event. They do exactly what you expected. And if you want to go, it wasn't for me, I have no problem with that. But I also watched them do their reversal, handspring, cartwheel, blah, 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 flip, get at. And when they did the thing where they're both in the middle, they're looking at each other, I watched the whole crowd get up. They captivated the crowd. That's why that match was on there. I'm interested to see what that number does and what they did in the ratings. And then I didn't love the double pin. It came off a little flat, but they restarted the match, or tried to, and then Takeshita comes out because they had that back and forth with Don and Kyle and Takeshita. Also, one question here, and I would love to have this kind of contract. Don and Kyle can show up to the show, and they got to go catch a flight 5 minutes after it starts. Did they just clock in? What a contract they have, that they show up. Hey, here we are. You guys on my matches tonight? Yeah, you're good. All right, we're going to go catch a flight and go home. What a payday, by the way. Obviously, they didn't leave. And then Takeshita gets involved and whoops them both. And he poses with the title, and he gets asshole chance. And I said, ooh, that worked. He ruined the dream match rematch. He, while I think will be a hell of a babyface at some point down the line, got exactly the heat he was supposed to get. And I would feel fairly confident saying he is going to win the international title at WrestleDream. And there are rumors out there. I think there was a Fightful report that a big push is coming for him. As it should be. And I do want to note that he got that heat by being out there by himself and doing all that stuff. Sure, connected to Don Callis will get you booed, but he did go out there by himself and wreck those guys. And I liked that they made note on commentary. I think it was Excalibur, of Takeshita maybe not being happy that Don Callis keeps calling upon Will Ospreay for favors. So maybe Takeshita did operate on his own. Or Don got Kyle Fletcher out of there so he wouldn't be there to help. And that's all nicely intertwined and interesting to me. Takeshita has it. I think everybody knows that. You just got to put a little bit more behind him. You got to flesh out who he is a little bit more. You're never going to get by on just being a great worker, but he has a lot going for him. MVP made multiple appearances on the show. One you would have expected and one you wouldn't have. Renee backstage with Camille and Mercedes, and MVP comes up. I like big business. And I went, okay. I like the idea of Mercedes with a mouthpiece. I think less of her talking can be more. I like her having that kind of representation. I think MVP fits that role very nicely. And if MVP is trying to build out his stable, there's some immediate credibility. And I think about this sometimes as it relates to stables. You got Don Callis' family. You got a Learning Tree. You got all. I have always been a little surprised that we don't see more of the Jimmy Hart, Bobby Heenan model. And by that, I mean just because MVP manages, let's just say Shelton Benjamin, because we saw him last night. We'll get to that. Doesn't mean that Shelton would have to be connected to Mercedes. MVP could just be, hey, I'm a 4-contract manager. I can handle Mercedes' business. I can also handle Shelton's business. It doesn't have to be in the same group. Could just be that, hey, this is a good guy to have. Stokely last night was watching the tag match. Doesn't mean if he ends up managing a tag team that they have to be associated with Chris Statlander. Just another client. Just another client that might need someone to represent them, to talk for them as such. Sure, Bobby Heenan would throw the Heenan family together for Survivor Series, but it wasn't like they were all doing run-ins for each other to help win every match. Jimmy Hart would show up 3-4 times on a show with different clients, with different teams, groups, whatever he was managing. Hell, it just got more use out of him. It got more use out of a good talker. That's what Jimmy Hart was. That's what Bobby Heenan was. That's what Stokely can be. That's what MVP can be. Bringing us, of course, to the continuation of last week at Grand Slam when MVP confronted Prince Nana. We get it again. That sounds like a complaint. Here's the president of my complaint department. Here's Shelton Benjamin, who looked like $1 million, who got a nice pop. And obviously the seeds are being planted. There's a report out there that Bobby Lashley's already signed with AEW. Now, I saw Nerdy Dude. I've heard some other people say, oh, we're doing this again. I understand that. I understand that sometimes reaching back into the past, into another company, it feels like it's been done already. I think it's been good that the elite has evolved from, well, it's the Bucks and Cody and Kenny and Hangman. Well, they did Bullet Club stuff, so they're still together. Like, you can evolve beyond that. You know, the Undisputed Era, Kingdom, whatever, like they were kind of together and then they weren't together and then they put the Kingdom in with Adam Cole, so it's the Undisputed, like whatever. You can lean into that too much. I do think that an MVP-led Hurt Business Syndicate, whatever, would be different for AEW because, as I said, you got bigger guys there. You're going to watch Shelton Benjamin stand next to some AEW wrestlers and be surprised. I'm going to tell you that right now. As I said, WWE has more big people than AEW has. It's just the nature of how things go. You don't see it as much in AEW because so many people are similar sized. It's why a Billy Gunn stands out. It's why a Big Bill stands out. That's not the norm in AEW. That's more of the norm in WWE. And that's fine. It's all about presentation anyway. But if you had a group of big, giant ass kickers with Bobby Lashley, with Shelton Benjamin, you know, would Mercedes and Camille be part of the group? Perhaps. Is it that, MVP business model? Could you add someone else to the group that's already there? I think people have brought up Powerhouse Hobbs. I don't think it needs to be him, but, I think a Layla Hirsch could maybe work in that group. Somebody that MVP could lift up, could make a bigger deal of. There's something there with that. Shelton Benjamin is not going to go to AEW to have great wrestling matches. He will, but I don't think that's the point is his presence. The point is the respect that he has from the fans. The point is he can whoop some people. Nerd Dude said, I think AEW in general has too many factions. I can understand that, but I also think, and this is something that I think WWE has taken a little bit from AEW. If you believe that Triple H has watched the AEW product and has seen some things that they've done well and has incorporated that into his creative, as anybody would do, it goes all ways. It always has happened in pro wrestling. It's happened in entertainment. It happens in sports. It's a copycat world. Does that work? Let's find a way for us to do it. Factions work because I think you need to have backup. The bloodline has told us You need to have backup. You need to find friends. Damage Control, Judgment Day, Inner Circle, Pinnacle, The Elite, Best Friends. Like, you do need to have friends to survive. It's good to not do singles matches every week to build to a singles match. It's good to have these 6-man tags, to throw the conglomeration out there. And then what are we building off of? Well, it was Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho, and now it's Chris Jericho and Mark Briscoe. Well, they've been battling. Moxley's group, people are making the connection to Shane. Could that be a big reason why? Is it an invasion? Is it, hey, Moxley says him and Shane are cut from the same cloth, whatever it might be. But it also allows you to get people involved throughout the show. It also allows you to push those bigger factions in multiple segments throughout the show. They open the show, which I think has been some of the best stuff AEW has done in terms of those very dark, serious. I love the music of the promos that Moxley and that group has been doing. It makes you sit up and pay attention. They're not loud. They're not even that angry. They feel like they're justified. They feel like they speak with a purpose. They're very confident in their philosophy, so they don't have to yell it. They're very confident in their skills, so they don't have to tell you about them. They're very confident in their resume because it's on full display. Wheeler Yuta, to me, is the most interesting he's ever been because if he's gotten stuck in the middle of this. And I'm not going to tell you he's going to be some main eventer someday. I'm not going to tell you he's going to get to the... But they have made him into more of a deeper character because of how he's stuck in the middle of this. And maybe he will beat the hell out of Bryan Danielson next week when they do that tag match. Maybe he will be pulled to the other side, or maybe he won't. Maybe he will be a sacrificial lamb in everything that's going on. But factions can work when they're presented accordingly. And factions also work so when you have a big cage match or something, you're not looking for friends. You don't have to throw together a team. It's already established. DX and the Nation. DX and the corporation and the ministry. And sometimes a good heel faction goes after a babyface, and he's got to fight through them all. That works too. So I like factions. But just like anything else, some factions are main event factions, some factions are mid-card factions, some factions are lower card. That's fine. It's like anything else on the card. And sometimes you need the main event faction to get some wins, so they beat a lower card faction. That's what the premier athletes are, let's be honest. Mark Sterling is out there to talk trash, to talk up his guys, and then they get beat. There is a role for that in wrestling. I'll talk a bit more about where WWE is going tomorrow. Cody teased something on McAfee's show on how this weekend at Bad Blood, there's going to be something that runs about Crown Jewel and something with title in the... He said a lot. He said on a show where he is talking to someone who gets paid by WWE, they did that for a reason. They're good about that. I'm talking about it right now. I tried to... Where would this be going? What is he getting at here? They haven't really pushed Crown Jewel, nor would they, because they have another massive pay-per-view coming up this weekend. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. We'll do more of a Bad Blood preview, and I hope you guys are with me for that. As always, go to ProWrestlingTees.com/TheWrestlingMat. Get your Wrestling Mat merch. Become a Mat member, and you'll get a discount on that Mat merch. Mat members have gotten a 2-part Mr. McMahon Netflix doc reaction. We watched the CW debut this week. We'll have more coming in October. And I want to get more of your questions in tomorrow. I know we had a lot to talk about today. You guys have been very active in the chat. I love that the chat can kind of go on its own without me. We have a very smart group of people in here 99% of the time. And we'll get to more of you guys tomorrow as it relates to Bad Blood, that ladder match on SmackDown, and a whole lot more. So make sure you're a member at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Subscribe for free at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Subscribe to the podcast. If you're on the podcast feed, come on over to thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Check out what we have here. So much content going out at a great time to be a pro wrestling fan. I thank all of you for joining me, and I'll be back tomorrow to talk about wrestling even more right here. Where do we do that? There's a place. I think I know the name. It is called The Wrestling Mat.